So we're engaged in this practice of meditation, and we've learned some of the Dharma in order to guide us a little bit, to help us with this practice and with our perspectives on life. And there's something behind that which is useful to consider and to bring to awareness a background to our doing this practice in the first place. In the Tibetan tradition, they have these what's called preliminary practices. That before you do anything, you engage in these preliminary practices. And the very first preliminary practice, and they're considered preliminary, but really, really serious. Like you got to do this. It's preliminary necessary. And the preliminary necessary practice, and it's a complete practice in its own, is considering the opportunity of having this human form and just how important and opportune this human form is. It's really, in terms of the Dharma practice and trying to be liberated from suffering, which is the purpose of the Dharma practice. Having the human form is the ideal form to do that. And if you don't believe it, the preliminary practice of considering the fortuitousness, just how fortunate you are to have this human form in order to practice. If you're not interested in practice, then having a human form probably is not the best form. Maybe there are better forms that perhaps you'll be less aware of just how much you suffer. I don't know how aware ants and beetles and spiders are of their suffering. But whatever suffering they may have, they don't have many ways to get out of it. And if we go higher up on the scale of evolutionary development, past ants and spiders, let's make a huge leap to mammals. Still, there are opportunities. So the first contemplation given in this preliminary practice is considering that among the billions of life forms on planet Earth, that you are born as a human is incredibly rare. So the preliminary practices start with considering what's called the four rarities. These four very rare circumstances. And this one very rare condition is called being born a human being. And we take it for granted, especially now that there's seem to be so many of us. 7.5 billion, I don't know. It seems crowded everywhere you go. Small country. I'd like to be a bird and fly above it. And we probably all have these little pet fantasies of imagining yourself as an animal or something, You probably do that, don't you? Am I the only one who fantasizes about being an eagle or a dolphin or something? I'm the only one who does that? Yeah. But then when I wake up, and I don't mean like Buddhists wake up, I mean I just kind of wake up from my daydream, I realized it wouldn't be so great to be an eagle. It just really wouldn't. I mean, does an eagle appreciate the view, or is it just looking for a mouse a kilometer down? It's probably just looking for a mouse. Okay. Does it have a sense of beauty that I think flying involves? Guys, it's not as though I would have my mind, my human mind, in the eagle head. Like it's an eagle mind, right? And I don't know Basho has that haiku that I mentioned yesterday or the day before that, I don't know. But one of those days I said the Basho haiku where he wrote, what the fish feel, what the birds feel, I don't know. Autumn evening. That was his haiku. And it was this sense of sort of, I'm human, they're fish and they're birds, and I can write about them and sort of project myself into them, but I really don't know what birds and fish are like, and my fantasies that it's a lot of fun underwater are probably wrong. They're probably wrong. That's just my fantasy. Because what we do know is that the way a fish is and a bird is, and the way, a cat and a dog even are, the way they are once they reach maturity and the way they are when they die is not so different. They're basically going through their life trying to stay safe and fill their stomachs. Like, that's it. That's their aspiration. Okay? To eat and sleep without danger. To get through the day. Right? That's the aspiration of the animal, even at a mammal. I don't know about primates. I really don't know. Maybe they go a bit further. But still, most of their day is concerned with collecting food and shelter. And that's it. Maybe child rearing a little bit. But on the whole, their spiritual development is extremely limited. And maybe I'm also just guessing because maybe like Basho, I don't know what the birds and the fish are going through. Maybe they are enlightened. I know there's that book, which one was it? By Douglas Adams? Thanks. And the whole Hitchhiker's Guide thing, and the smartest creatures in the world were the rats or the mice or something. And they were just playing that they were dumb, but actually they were like really brilliant, And the dolphins were next, and then we were. So, but I don't think that. That's science fiction, great. But what in terms of the preliminary practice that the Tibetan Buddhism offers us is to consider, if you didn't have this human lifespan, which enables you a lot of the potential for a lot of progress in terms of your mental development over one lifetime. An animal, in terms of the Buddhist ideas of rebirth, would have to go through thousands or millions of births in order to one day hopefully reach this level. And you don't even need to think about that. Like, you don't need to believe that. That's a, interesting belief. But it is just in terms of comparison of ourselves and what animals and insects and other life forms with sentience. Now, we say in Buddhism, may all sentient beings, I want to save all sentient beings are all considered to have Buddha nature. So yeah, all those sentient beings, including the caterpillar, the ant, the beetle, the cockroach, all of those are considered in the Buddhist, Mahayana Buddhist thought to have Buddha nature, to have the essence of Buddha enlightenment in them. But to realize it, Huineng, the sixth patriarch, said the difference between an enlightened, a Buddha, an ordinary person, okay, is that the Buddha has realized it and the ordinary person hasn't. That's the difference. It's not a difference in nature. It's a difference in realization, right, of your nature. Now, we could go even farther and say the difference between a Buddha, a Buddhist human, a Buddha human, an enlightened human, and the unenlightened, mouse, is that the mouse hasn't realized it yet. But a mouse realizing it versus a human, it's going to take a lot longer for the mouse. And they'll have a lot of conditions that are obstacles in the way, for many lifetimes. Or even in that lifetime, it's going to be, a big challenge for that mouse. Right? So the opportunity we have as a conscious human who can ponder his or her existence, you can actually consider what is the meaning of life. I don't know what kind of, Jonathan and I yesterday were playing with dogs. I don't know what kind of pondering they do. I don't think they think about life very much. They don't, contemplate their existence. They don't think, is this it? Like, can it be better than this? No, that's not what they're thinking. I don't know. Again, I'm projecting, but I kind of have a hunch. If you just observe animals, they're there. They're stuck. They're stuck. What you see is what you get. They're not gonna move forward. They have very little opportunity to do that. Some people think that isn't it great rebirth that there's like a monastery cat or a monastery dog, like a cat or dog who's hanging around the monastery, and they think, well, that cat has good karma. A few more lifetimes, it may, make it up the ladder a little bit. But that's fanciful thinking. It really is. What we know is that we have the ability to wonder. How can I make a change? How can I make things different? Does it have to be this way? Is there another possibility? That's a uniquely human consciousness. That's a uniquely, that's rare in terms of, all of the life forms on this planet. To be able to ponder and contemplate your own meaning of life is a rare thing. And we should consider that. That's one of the rarities. The second rarity, which is very connected to this, in terms of these preliminary practice, the second rarity that we contemplate in this traditional ways of trying to, basically what we're trying to do is to motivate our practice. That's what these contemplations are for. These considerations are to give us some motivation. It's like, you're a human, are you using your humanness well? Or are you just behaving like an animal, thinking that, not a crazy animal, but basically the way you are at 20 is going to be the way you are when you're 90. You don't want that, okay? You want to be a Buddha when you're 90, okay? And if you're not, what were you doing? You were an animal. So, so the second rarity that is contemplated is how rare it is among humans to be disenchanted or disillusioned with samsara. To feel like this is, not so satisfying. The great food, the great trips, the great objects, the, fancy things, the better positions, the relationships, all of it, the wheel of samsara, the constant up and down of life. Something's missing here. Something's missing. To have a growing disillusionment with the pleasures of life, it doesn't mean you don't want them. It doesn't mean you don't even like them. Sure, you can like them and want them. But the more mature you are in your practice and in your consciousness, the less that is enough. It's just not enough. This is not satisfying. What samsara has to offer is not enough for my life. And that's that disillusionment, which is incredibly rare. You can have and it's not related necessarily to intelligence. You can be very intelligent and very well learned and very educated and still be chasing after worldly success. Still wanting to bolster your sense of self. That's why ego in the university is such a big thing. It's not connected to education. It's just the definition of ego is they're different. It's academic achievement. But you still want to have a really strong and successful persona. So, seeing that and seeing as a whole, you have a little sense of renunciation. Like, I can give it up a bit, and I won't be missing a lot. It's kind of that choice, movie night, meditation night. Which is it? That disenchantment with samsara will say, I want to practice. If I have a choice, I'm going to choose practice. That's what the second rarity helps us. The other sense of rarity, and you know, here's one story I read of recently that really hit the mark for me of this, how rare it is to be disenchanted with samsara. I read this interview in the Times with this crime boss from London, England. A crime boss from like the 70s and 80s, and now he was like 87 in an old age home. He's like a retired crime boss.
Retired what?
Crime boss. He was like a mafia boss.
Oh.
Okay. And he did time. He spent about 20 years in prison, for robbery and stuff. And then when he was 82, a few of his friends who also were out of prison contacted him to do another robbery. Let's get out of retirement and try it again, because they missed the lifestyle. And of course they got caught. I mean,
But of course.
I know that's what's called ageism, right? Ageism. Of course it could be an 82-year-old mafia, whatever. I mean, they were trying to drill through a wall or something. That's like they got caught drilling through a wall. And this reporter asked him, he said, well, the obvious question is, why did you, go back? He said, it's for the money. It's for the money. Money? At this stage, that's still your drive? That's still driving you to do crime after all of this? Yeah. And then later, they asked if he has any regrets and stuff, and he said, well, he's upset that his children don't visit him. I wonder why. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's a really kind of funny and somewhat pathetic example of a lack of disenchantment with samsara. Yeah. We're of the nature of aging, sickness, and death. That's the basic teaching. And those hits, those experiences of dukkha, of difficulty through aging, sickness, and death, should be instructive for us. They should lead to disillusionment. The illusion that samsara will make me happy becomes disillusioned. I no longer believe the lie. I just don't believe the illusion anymore. I see through it. That's rare. Okay, that's rare. And you should, why am I encouraging these preliminary practices? Because the fact that you're sitting here and you're listening to the Dharma and you're practicing in your own way, you should deeply appreciate that you are one of the few, right? One of the few who are born human, who have a growing disillusionment with the, sparkles of samsara. But it goes further. When we want to consider these, just how fortunate it is to be born human. Throughout history, most people have not had access to liberation teachings. Okay, they've had religions and they've had traditions, and some have done good and some have done ill. But we're in an era where a Buddha was born and taught, and it didn't end there. It didn't end there. If it ended there, then we wouldn't be having this discussion. But the teachings were preserved and they were able to be transmitted over time so that we can receive them and hear them and maintain them and try to understand them. Today, that is incredibly rare. More so, you have access to them. You have free access in a way that even granted that we're living in this world post-Buddha, where you have teachings of liberation in order to help you deeply become more free and suffer less. The thing about that, one of the freedoms in this preliminary in these preliminary teachings is, they said, it's in the traditional way, they said, is that you're free from being a barbarian living in a savage land. I like that. You're not a barbarian in a savage land, hopefully. But what do they mean when they explain that? They're saying, the contemporary teachers say, well, yeah, you could be living in a place like, I don't know, Kabul in Afghanistan, and you're under a very threatening government, and you're not going to have free internet access to read a Dharma talk. Like, it's just not going to happen. There's one of the teachers, when he was explaining this, he said once he got an email from somebody, and in the email, the student said, I'm probably the only Buddhist in this country right now. This is like in 2004. And the teacher wrote back. His name was Alex Burson. He was a translator for the Dalai Lama. And he wrote back and he said, well, where are you? He said, Baghdad. Like the guy, Baghdad. And then he said, and so what should I do? Get out of there. No, I mean, they very limited internet access, no teachers, no Sangha, no books, no library with like Buddhist books and stuff. I mean, how does he progress? So yeah, he's turned on. We should appreciate and consider the fortune of being born human, of having some disillusionment to samsara, of living in a Buddhist era where the teachings are available, of having access to them. Incredibly rare. Incredibly rare. And here's the fourth rarity of these four rarities. How rare it is to be motivated to practice when you've been exposed to the teachings. That's the cream of the crop. We say, really? Many people have gone to Dharma seminars, Buddhist courses. I'm just talking about Buddhism. You could talk about it for other religions also in terms of practicing sincerely. I mean, being really motivated to be of the most benefit to yourself and all others, and to use your tradition to truly help. That type of motivation. I'm just saying in the context of the Dharma, because that's, what I know, and that's what we're doing here. But, I mean, you could really apply it to every religion. How rare it is to be motivated to truly practice. So, you can be exposed to the teachings. You can have all these conditions, these rare conditions. I'm human. I'm not, totally in love with samsara. I have access to the teachings. I live in a time and a place where I really can access it. And this place, I'm not just talking about, this country right now, but even if you go down the street and you go to East Jerusalem, or you go to Palestinian territories, like this is the same country. I've often talked with people about, I wonder why we don't get Palestinians or Arabs, sitting here once every 5 years. Maybe somebody will wander in by mistake, but it doesn't happen. First of all, probably the guards won't let them through, but we're like in the wrong location as it is. But I had a friend who tried doing a meditation group in Beit Lechem. It didn't work. It didn't work. They just people couldn't they couldn't tell each other. It wasn't acceptable. It wasn't really safe for them to publicize it. I'm not talking about people being violent or anything. I'm just saying that it was, the Eastern thought was not accepted in that place. Okay, having having Buddhism, and it just wasn't, it didn't work. We could be in a situation, never mind about political or religious attitudes, right? We could just be in a situation where we don't have the luxury of trying to think about, spiritual liberation. I'm trying to get food on the table. I'm trying to provide for my children. I'm trying to get through the day and, make it. Just if I'm at a more subsistence level of survival, right, I'm not going to be probably interested in reading the Dharma. It's just not going to be, maybe, but generally, okay, the fact that we have the rare privilege of looking beyond our circumstances is incredibly rare. And all of this is to fully appreciate, because when you appreciate the opportunity you have, you will use it more well. You won't waste it. As the Evening Gata says, life and death are of supreme importance. Time quickly passes by and opportunity is lost. Strive to awaken. Awaken. Do not squander your life. Squander means don't waste it. Right? And these contemplations are not saying bad, bad. They're saying good, good. It's saying, you have all these goods. What are you doing with them? We should feel so like it's a celebration. These preliminary teachings are a celebration of your fortune. It's really quite amazing and remarkable when we consider it. But they are called preliminary practices. It's not just about saying, oh yeah, I heard this talk and it was inspiring. No, it has to become your own practice where you remind yourself in a regular way, okay, about just how fortunate you are. Okay, and it's not something that you need to convince yourself. You just have to go through the facts. I'm human. I'm not so interested in material and worldly success. I'm living at a time where the Buddhist teachings are available. I'm living in a place where I can access them. And I have a Sangha and teachers and, books and talks. And online now it's way more than anyone could have dreamt of at any other time in history. Along with all the other garbage online, but there's thousands of Dharma talks online. I mean, think about that. And to really make it so rare, there are so many people, even in Buddhist countries, who couldn't care less. They just couldn't care less. I remember a long time ago when I was in my early 20s and I was taking these comparative religion courses, and I was talking to my brother about it, and he did the same courses too. He was like, yeah, I did all those courses. It's like a survey course where you do 13 religions in 8 weeks, something like that. And I said, yeah, he said each one of them is saying they're the truth. And if they're all saying it's the truth, then they kind of all cancel each other out. That was his point of view. It's like, if they all are, then none of them know. That was kind of his logic. And I said, yeah, but this one, I mean, for me, out of all of them, for some reason, I had the karma and the fortune to be really motivated by the Buddhist teachings. I found the Buddhist teachings most inspiring and most clear, and it just made total sense from day one. More so than anything else I've ever encountered. Now, that may happen like that to you, or it may be a kind of a gradual a deepening of saying, yes, I'm seeing this and I'm starting to deeply appreciate the clarity of the teachings. But that type of appreciation which turns you not to an intellectual understanding, but a motivation to want to actually put it into practice and to make a commitment, that is rare. Okay, that is very rare. Among Buddhists is rare, okay, among all people, to sincerely be committed to a spiritual path in order to liberate yourself and benefit all others is incredibly rare. If you have any of that motivation in your heart, you should really protect it and cultivate it. You know, like a little, very vulnerable, spring of a flower that is just peeking its green little head out of the ground. Now, it's at a very delicate place, but you know it's there. And underneath the ground, the roots are deeper than the little sprig. You have to protect it and cultivate it. And to think in the long term. It may be a redwood. It just may be a redwood. Okay? And if you keep cultivating it, it may tower for thousands of years, 100 meters high. But if you ignore it, it will wilt. It will, won't survive. So these preliminary practices are really for the sake of recognizing the little sprout that's there in your heart and committing and working to, in a daily way, cultivating that sprout. Because if you don't, it won't grow. Right? And not only will it not grow, it'll die. It's not enough just to say, I'll keep it the way it is. It won't. It goes either one way or the other. Right? It doesn't stay static, because that just doesn't happen. Change happens. What kind of change do you want to make? This is the question these preliminary practices are asking us. Change is going to happen. What kind do you want to contribute to? So I want to read for you one quote from Suzuki Roshi. By the way, the being born human is also explained as the first rarity of being born human. One of the ways it's explained is being born human with just the right amount of suffering. I like that. Just the right amount. To motivate us. There's these different levels of in the Buddhist thought of these different levels of existence for being born. There's the hell realms of like hell and animal and hungry ghost. There's the human realm. Then there's like the giants and gods and demigods and gods, whatever, those types of things. And it's like, wait, the gods are like drinking nectar and eating ambrosia and everything is happy and beautiful and perfect and everything. What is wrong with that? Like what's wrong with that? And the answer is they don't have any suffering to motivate their practice. They don't have any suffering. The gods don't have any suffering to motivate practice, to become liberated. So that when their good karma runs out, boom, they fall. So being born a human with just the right amount of suffering, that's a rare thing. You should appreciate it. If we didn't suffer, we wouldn't be motivated to practice. So before you judge your suffering as like just an obstacle in your life, you can perhaps consider it as, motivation for your practice. That's why it's so important and rare to consider it that way. So Suzuki Roshi talked about freedom from everything. He said, when you're able to sit, experiencing just sitting, then the meaning of your everyday life will be completely different. You will have freedom from everything. That is the main point. Usually, you have no freedom from the things you hear or see. But when you truly meditate, you will have freedom from things. You will truly enjoy your life because you are not attached. Sometimes we think non-attachment is kind of seems like a pretty dry place, unfeeling. Whereas Roshi is very clear in saying, that is when you can truly enjoy. That is when you can truly enjoy. The disillusionment that I'm saying with samsara, the second rarity, being disenchanted, saying like, it doesn't, I'm not deceived anymore. I see through it. Doesn't mean you don't enjoy it. He says you enjoy it even more. But you don't depend on it. You're not attached to it. You recognize that this enjoyment is going to pass. The main thing to see through samsara, the main way to see through it, is by understanding its impermanence. And when you truly understand the impermanence of samsara, then you can enjoy it and know it's not going to last. So when it does pass, it's not like the gods who fall. They weren't expecting it. You're expecting it. You know this is the nature of things. So these rarities, when we contemplate them and embrace them and really, take them on as a preliminary practice. Preliminary to what? To greater freedom. To greater freedom. To be truly in this world, to truly enjoy it, and to let go at the same time. You won't really enjoy it if you don't let go. Because if you don't let go, you're going to be worried that it's going to leave you. If you already let go, then when it does pass, it'll be okay. Practice well.